This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while now. I hold both of these games in very high regard within the Assassin's Creed series, and both have some hardcore followings in the community. I'm of course talking about Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I see tons of Unity and Black Flag fans in the comments of my videos, and a lot of people hold these games as their favorites in the series, which is going to make things very interesting when we compare the two. So I'm going to objectively compare the games and then give my honest opinion on which game I think is better. And please remember, that is just that, my opinion. If you think the better game is Black Flag or Unity, I perfectly can understand an argument for both. I feel like when I go into the comments of this video, I'm just gonna see this. But anyways, without further ado, let's compare AC Unity and Black Flag. So, rightfully so, I want to start with comparing both games' stories. Black Flag obviously follows Edward Kenway, and Unity, Arno Dorian. I know for a lot of people, Edward is their favorite protagonist in the series, or at least top 3, while Arno varies for many people. However, I do find Arno's story to be very underrated. It's obviously still not perfect, but for Arno specifically, he has some great character development. His story is very tragic, and he loses literally everyone he cares about and grows and changes through those losses. For a majority of Unity's story, Arno is arrogant, disobedient, often rash, and maybe even a bit immature, always acting out of self-interest or helping Elise. A lot of people seem to not like the love story element of Unity, but it's so integral to Arno's growth as a character. When he finally loses Elise, that's when you really notice the shift in his character. I always urge people to play the Dead Kings DLC for Unity, because that's really where you get to see how Arno has matured and changed since that ending. You get to see it a little bit with his ending monologue, but not to the extent of Dead Kings. Is Arno the most interesting or likable protagonist in this series? No, not really. He doesn't have the charm or likability of the Ezios and Edwards, but a protagonist doesn't need those traits to be a good character. They need a good arc, and I think Arno has that. Not every character needs to be charming and funny, like Edward, for example. Although I love Edward, and he too has a fantastic arc, one that's a lot more clear to see than Arno's. Starting out as the greedy, selfish pirate who throughout several years, speaking of, that's something I really like about Black Flag's story. This doesn't all happen within a year or two. This story unfolds over the course of 7 years. This change and development with Edward doesn't happen overnight, and similar to Arno, through the people Edward meets, and a lot of which he loses, it changes him. I'd like to call his story the assassin's journey, because everything that happens in Black Flag, and all the growth Edward has as a character, leads him into becoming someone worthy of donning the hood of an assassin. By the time you get to that bittersweet ending, it feels like you've been on a massive journey. So many of the friends you met along the way are gone, and Edward is a new person. I love Black Flag's story, and while I believe Unity's to be underrated, there are still some evident flaws. First off, I never really found Germain to be a totally intriguing antagonist, not to mention the completely pointless modern day that really doesn't have any story to it whatsoever. Black Flag's modern day at the very least has a bit of mystery to it, and it went for something new with the first person Abstergo employee, which was a pretty cool twist. It's still definitely not my favorite modern day, but I'll take it over Unity's any day, even if some of those time displacement sections in Unity were really fun. Overall, while I do like Unity's story, it just doesn't quite stack up to Black Flag's in my opinion. The gameplay of both games is going to be very interesting to compare. Obviously, one of the biggest differences we can point out is that Black Flag has naval combat as a major pillar of the game, while Unity is all on foot within a large, dense city. Whether that's a positive or negative is up to the person. Some people absolutely love naval combat. It's a big reason why so many people love Black Flag in the first place. It's the ultimate pirate fantasy. Some people may not that like naval combat, and if that's the case, then Black Flag doesn't really do it for them since it's such an integral part of the experience. I love naval combat, but it's not like it needs to be in every AC game for me. As for the actual melee combat, both games have quite different systems. Unity was the first Assassin's Creed game to move on from the counter-based system that the series used since AC1, and opinions on Unity's combat are very mixed. I personally like the system. It's perhaps the most realistic and grounded looking combat of the series, but the issue is that it's just not polished at all. It's very rough and janky to use sometimes, and a lot of bugs come within the combat, even to this day after all the updates. Black Flag's combat is very similar to AC3, but slightly downgraded from AC3 in my opinion. The lack of weapon variety makes it feel rather repetitive at times. I don't think the animations look quite as good as Connor's from AC3. There's less unique enemy types, not to mention you can just spam guard break and get easy instant kills. I still enjoy the combat, don't get me wrong, especially being able to use the 4 pistols, but it's definitely not perfect. As for stealth, it's kind of a similar deal where I love Unity's stealth system and how it looks. The animations in this game across the board are just phenomenal, but it doesn't always work properly and can be very frustrating sometimes. Being able to actually crouch is nice, and I love the tools you can use, especially the Phantom Blade, one of my favorite weapons in the entire series. A lot of Black Flag's stealth revolves around using bushes and tall grass for cover, and of course the insane volume of different tailing and eavesdropping missions. The tools are fun to use. The blowgun works kind of similar to the Phantom Blade, but not entirely. I think overall the stealth in Unity is more fleshed out and is just more fun to pull off, even though it doesn't always work. And it perhaps has the best designed missions for stealth, with those black box assassinations, multiple opportunities, and special assassinations, kind of like the Hitman games. I also prefer the parkour in Unity. Again, when it works and isn't being stubborn, it's a lot of fun. Easily the best parkour animations in the series, and Paris is so well designed for parkour. Black Flag's parkour is fine, but I definitely enjoy Unity's system more. The expression and creativity it allows for, it just never gets old. I don't even like using fast travel in Unity, because why do that when you can just parkour to your objective? Black Flag and Unity's open worlds are both up there with my favorite open worlds in all of Assassin's Creed. I just mentioned that Paris is so well designed for parkour, and the atmosphere of the world itself is unparalleled in this series. The sheer volume of NPCs, crowd events, and the general design and historical accuracy of the city, it's so dense and filled with life while still being a fairly large world. And I love that you don't need something like a grappling hook or some kind of mount to traverse it. It's all with your own 2 feet in parkour. But Black Flag's open world is great for a different reason. It's very open and freeing, getting to sail the seas and go to different islands and cities. Some of the cities are very well designed and immersive as well, specifically Havana. There's just a really awesome feeling that comes with getting on your ship and getting to sail wherever you want. One of my small little complaints really is how many loading screens there are whenever you dock into one of those big cities, but obviously the technology of Black Flag was a lot more limited at the time, so it wasn't possible to make that whole process completely seamless. But aside from that, 2 fantastic open worlds that sit right at the top of the series for me. I think I slightly lean more in Paris from Unity's favor because I love using the parkour and the atmosphere is just unmatched, but Black Flag captures that feeling of the pirate life so well. Both games also have a lot to do within their worlds. Now, I personally prefer the side missions in Unity. The murder mysteries are so underrated and not talked about much. The Paris stories are fun with little storylines attached to them, not to mention the heists and co-op missions. I do really like the classic assassination contracts in Black Flag, along with the Templar hunts and searching for buried treasure. That really helps enhance the pirate fantasy as well, but I feel after a while, the side content in Black Flag can get a bit repetitive. I think Unity's is a little more varied, and again, with co-op, that adds endless replay value, even if co-op isn't the most polished experience. Obviously, Unity is the more recent game, so it of course looks better graphically speaking, especially since it was for the new gen, but Black Flag, for a nearly 10-year-old game, still holds up incredibly well. I love the art style and color palette of the game. The water looks absolutely gorgeous, and they did a great job bringing the Caribbean to life. Unity is still one of the best looking AC games, and it has so much detail. They did a great job of making Paris look historically accurate. I said this before, but I've been to some of the places in this game in real life, and it's so impressive just how accurate it all is. Both games have wonderful soundtracks as well. I love both of them. They both capture the feeling and vibe of the setting and story being told perfectly well. I can't choose a favorite between those soundtracks. It just wouldn't feel fair to the other. So, that begs the ultimate question though. Which game is better, Unity or Black Flag? This is so tough for me to decide. Ultimately, I'm going to acknowledge that I think Black Flag is a more well-rounded and polished game. It also has the better narrative of the two. So in terms of better overall game, I think Black Flag wins, but personally, I enjoy Unity more. That's just me. The atmosphere, the gameplay, the parkour, the stealth. You know me, I've always had a soft spot for Unity, but I totally understand that probably a majority of you prefer Black Flag, and that it's a much more polished experience. For me, Unity has always just felt like the evolution of the classic AC formula, and I don't know what else to say, I just love that game. But feel free to let me know down in the comments which game you think is better and why, and let me know what games you want me to compare in this series next. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new. I also have a channel membership if you're interested in joining for special perks. The link for that will be down in the description. And other than that, thanks for watching and have a good rest of your day, Assassins.